The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language.
Welcome back to Spies Like Us. This is part 2 of our tradecraft analysis of 1998's Enemy of the State. In part 1, we focused on the villain side of things. Here in part 2, we're going to be discussing Gene Hackman's character's entry onto the stage and how this changes the story from an absolute no-win situation to at least a kind of a David versus Goliath gig. If you missed out on part 1, and you don't want to miss out again, do you? The simple solution is to go ahead and hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast app. Now let's get back to it. I think I can recap the movie real quick in a way that'll help us hang everything together. At the beginning of the movie, John Voight kills Jason Robards, and a tape is made of it. Meanwhile, Will Smith comes into possession of a tape of a mob boss meeting with union leaders. And the confusion about the tapes is a major part of the story. Because he's got the tape of the mob boss, which he knows he has, but then he's given a tape by Jason Lee before Jason Lee dies, which Will Smith doesn't know he has. Mm-hmm. John Voight sends an army of NSA bullshit at Will Smith to try to get the tape. Will Smith mistakenly believes that all this nonsense is because of the mob tape he got. That causes him to contact Lisa Bonet's guy, Gene Hackman, to find out what's going on. Gene Hackman just happens to be, huge coincidence, an ex-NSA guy. And then, I don't know, some other tape stuff happens. But that's basically what happens here, right?
When Will Smith thinks it's the mob tape, he contacts Rachel Banks to find out who her guy is. That's when she discusses the signal, which was kind of cool because we've seen the chalk on the post office box in The Americans a few times, So I liked that, what her signal is and where the meeting place is on a boat. So Will Smith gets this the signal information, which is really important for counterintelligence. This is how they kind of get in. So he gets in. However, he's being watched by this giant mob of NSA agents, and a guy stops him in the bathroom and is sweeping him for bugs and asking him questions. And he's like, "Are you Brill?" And he's like, "Oh, Brill's dead. I got the signal." And then he was like, "Don't say a word." And he's like, "Give me your left shoe." And he pops open the shoe and pulls out a transmitter to show him you've been being watched or whatever. And it turns out this guy is not Brill or related to Brill whatsoever. So he's pretty much on Team John Voight. But I wanted to mark this as my number 2 best tradecraft. Was one, Will Smith, had to get the signal. And they're watching him. So they picked up on the signal and picked up that he's trying to meet someone. So they intercepted the meeting.
They have all the information they need to do this. Yeah.
Right. And they intercept the meeting and pretend to be the guy and to build confidence between Will Smith and this fake Brill. He sweeps him and pulls out a bug, and here, I found a bug. You can trust me now, type of thing, So I marked that as my number 2 best tradecraft. I thought that was very clever, and very good surveillance work and intelligence work.
Right, and I just realized he only finds one of the trackers, and there's 6 trackers on Will Smith's person, right?
Right, so he just took away one of them so that the other ones were still working.
Right, so that means, because he does the sweep thing, and it only beeps when it hits Will Smith's shoe, that means he has to have rigged it to have a little button where he can press the button to make a beep, because otherwise it would have been beeping like crazy.
Right, exactly. So I thought that was really cool. I liked that a lot, yeah.
Your number 2 best, I called it my number 1. So we're still pretty in line with each other.
Lined up here, yeah.
On this stuff. Let's talk about the tech again. Let's put a little more flavor on the, we have just established, you and I think that Team Voight could have gotten a lot more mileage out of taking a light touch and just listening, you know, instead of like chasing and flushing and spooking the prey.
Right.
I wondered if any of the, you know, tracking devices that were on Will Smith could have just been a transmitter, you know, like if the, you know, if his cell phone, if they just put a microphone in his cell phone, like, boom, you got everything you need. You don't need this super complicated, you know,
Right.
Union Square kind of stuff.
Which, by the way, the technology existed because that's how they caught the mob in like the 70s and 80s, was bugging their cars and their telephones. And by
Right.
98, I'd like to believe they had better listening devices that they could just put on his pen or phone or something.
Sort of, because what you see in the mob movies is like these wires that are like, I don't know, there's a fucking battery pack and
Right.
like it has to be like taped to your chest and like a bunch of stuff that like, you know, someone searching you could easily find, and certainly you couldn't have it on your person, those kind of
Right.
things, right, without knowing about it.
Right.
The best I could find was an article in 2013 that displayed a transmitting wire. It was like they were super proud of it in 2013, that was like small enough to have, you know, like, you know, the little coin, little green coin stuff that we see in the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Like it looks kind of like that. It's about that small. That is small enough to have been planted in his coat or maybe his phone. That's in 2013. They're super proud of that. So I don't think they could have made them that small in 1998. So, okay, maybe they couldn't have audio recording.
Well, the tech probably existed and it wasn't public. But yeah, you're right. For the film, it's established that they had to use all this other stuff. So I see where you're going, that maybe they couldn't have planted the mic on the cell phone, is what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, I have a feeling that that kind of transmitter technology wasn't tiny enough, especially to fit like into his pen or something. So that's okay. But now the tininess of the locators. So let's say like all they have on him is just locators, which like bully for them for putting fucking 6 of them on the guy. Kind of overkill, but it's fun. But the tininess of those locators are also a little bit questionable. You mentioned GPS before, and GPS is not a technology that exists in 1998 that is this small.
Oh, well, not publicly. Again, like, you know, a lot of stuff exists before it reaches consumer market. But yeah, you're right. Like, that's why I'm wondering if this is why they had to approach the film this way, that a lot of the tech wasn't public enough or on the market to even bring up. So like that's what I'm seeing where you're going. That like I'm following your logic here. That this is why they had to have the big square group, you know, with the Rachel Banks meeting.
But yeah, GPS requires 3 satellites to function, and the receiver, right? Like the one that's in your smartphone right now, like it has to have a processor in order to calculate the signal delay.
Okay.
Like it's not like a, you know what, you know, the product Tile, and there's like all those kind of things like that we have now. Like Tile can't be found by GPS even today, as far as I know. The reason is because Tile needs to have it would have to have a computer in it. Like, okay, I'm a satellite, or I'm 3 satellites, and I have the information of what I'm trying to track, and I can send out those beams. Now I'm sounding really fucking like I have no idea what I'm talking about, but these fucking beams,
Right.
lasers.
Yeah.
But to figure out where the thing is exactly. But the thing is, right now, the way GPS works is like the thing that I'm looking for has to want to be found. And it has to be smart enough to like calculate some kind of signal delay between the satellites in order to give them correct information on its exact location. So that's why, yeah, you can have one in your cell phone, because your cell phone's big enough to, house one of these things and have a little computer in it. Mm-hmm. But a tile is not. A tile locates by Bluetooth, which is a much shorter range. Like the satellites can't fucking well, I don't know if I want to say trust me. That's why none of this made it into my best and worst.
Yeah.
because I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying like the limitations of what I can tell with a certain amount of Googling. There's I mentioned 2013. They were really proud. Someone was really proud of bringing to market a wire that was small enough to be like one of those coin things. In 2014, the Nano Hornet GPS chip was touted as like the smallest in the world, came from an Israeli technology company, which again is about the size of one of those coins. It wouldn't have fit in his pen or in his watch, but it like could have fit in his shoe, or you could have hidden it in his coat. So as far as 2014, yeah, you could have GPS stuff that's that small because you can make processors, and obviously it's going to need like a power source. But that's 2014. That's 20 years later than this film. My big takeaway on the tech is I think everything we see existed then in 1998, but almost none of it existed like that small, that efficient, and that powerful.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's why I think this movie is science fiction.
It's a good point.
Now it gets fucking weird. I want to presage this by saying, okay, I only found one source. It's from a news organization that I generally trust, but I couldn't find any other backup for this. It is claimed that the NRO was inspired by this movie to go and update the capabilities of their satellites. It is claimed that someone working for like not necessarily the NRO directly, but one of their research labs in Northern California, after watching this movie, ran home and called his boss and said, "Dude, I have an idea. Call me." The satellite footage in this film is faked. It's faked with aerial photography, using like a technique that was like specifically developed for this film. The guy that developed, like, it might have been the cinematographer, or it was just someone that was in the technical production of this film. He got hired to help them make better spy satellites.
Oh, wow. That's great.
It wouldn't be the first time that the military or intelligence agencies got a great idea from Hollywood. No,
definitely not.
That's the tech of the film. I'm glad you're with me. Like I believe everything here exists now. I don't believe it existed then at these micro scales, or this fast or this efficient. Like you have to let's see, there's 3 satellite orbits. One of them doesn't matter. It's an elliptical orbit that has nothing to do with this. One of them is a low Earth orbit, which like just spins around, and basically like you could take a snapshot of DC like every few hours.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the geosynchronous one that you could just park over DC. And that's probably more like what we're seeing in this film, but I don't think that technology had actually existed yet. It so exists now. Let's talk about Gene Hackman, because this is like halfway through the movie. Gene Hackman's second build doesn't even need to show up for the first hour of the film.
Right.
But here he is. We just mentioned there's the Gabriel Byrne, who is like Brill in quotes in the credits.
Right.
On IMDb, he's listed as fake Brill. He's taking Will Smith for a ride. Gene Hackman pursuing in an SUV, even goes to the point of crashing into the back of Gabriel Byrne's taxi. And I don't get it. This is I'm putting this next to my whole problem with Jon Voight's plan. It's almost as close, like Gene Hackman's plan. The movie needs Gene Hackman to become involved. This movie is a lot more fun to watch than to think about. A person that's portrayed as being so careful as Gene Hackman is not doing this kind of cowboy shit, I think.
Right.
My worst number one, minus 5 points.
No, that's pretty good. I didn't even think about that. Why would he go after him? Other than he had the signal, he might be worried Rachel was compromised somehow. But still, you're right. He's not going to go out like a desperado like this. That was a really good catch. I didn't even think about that.
We're going to talk a little bit about Hackman and Will Smith's first interaction, but it'll basically end with Hackman saying, like, get the fuck away from me. Mm-hmm. Will Smith is going to contact him a second time with information that Lisa Bonet's been murdered. Well, now we have a plausible reason that Hackman would maybe take a risk, because we have this backstory where his buddy from operations he did in Iran in leading up to the 80s, kind of made Lisa Bonet like his responsibility. They promised each other, like, if either of us doesn't make it out, like, the other person will look out for the other guy's family. So that part made sense, but it's the first interaction of Gene Hackman deciding to get involved that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So that said, and I think like I just want to say, like, the Voight plan and the Gene Hackman involvement, they're pivotal moments, but at least they're papered over quickly so that we can just get back to the fucking barbecue, which is what we want.
Right, yeah.
Putting all the bugs in a potato chip bag. I want to give it plus 5 points. It almost made my number 3 best just because I liked it. Hadn't seen it before. I have no idea if this would actually work.
Well, I liked it for 2 reasons. Number one, when he opens the bag, it'll sound like static, and he's pouring and crunching chips all over Will Smith. The other thing is a lot of potato chips bags have kind of that metallic bagginess to it. It's not like a plastic bag. And I know most transmitters can't go through metal. Any kind of signal transmissions are usually blocked by metals, especially at this point, or at least that's what we would have believed at that time in 98. So putting them in the bag would have blocked the signal, quote unquote.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of clever to leave one bug outside the bag, send the elevator down, so that they can confuse anyone that's, so that, well, I guess maybe it would have been smarter to just leave all the transmitters outside the potato chip bag, just send the elevator down.
Why he carried them up makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't actually.
Yeah.
All right, well, now I'm really happy I didn't make it my one of my best.
Yeah.
But yeah, leave the bugs in the elevator, send the elevator down. They're tracking the elevator, it's going down. Again, I don't actually think that the GPS or tile technology is capable in 1998 of recognizing elevation at all. But it's as given in this film. But he gets him up to the rooftop. I didn't think this was the smartest place to have the conversation.
Right.
He proves to be wrong. He thought the satellite dishes would confuse them. But I don't know. Up there, rooftop, exposed, anyone can see you. Maybe bad.
Yeah, I would agree. But we don't have a cool rooftop scene like we always need in an action film.
Right. Or a helicopter.
Yeah. I feel like Gene Hackman could have just done what Will Smith does a little bit later and got into a room to have Will Smith strip down and take a robe. But then we wouldn't have had the cool action scene after the cool rooftop scene.
Yeah, the more I think, I mean, I know Gene Hackman really had to be arm wrestled into doing this movie. And the more I look at his part in the script, the more I kind of understand why.
Yeah.
But they separate, and I think this is where we get one of our, like, honestly, like, really great elongated chase scenes, like, all through the hotel, right?
Yeah.
I didn't time this one. I know that, like, we clocked the car chase in Ronin at a full 10 minutes, which felt exhausting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long this one is. It's pretty long, but it doesn't feel exhausting. It's actually really fun because it's such a mix of, running and window climbing and cars chasing people on foot and tunnels and changing costumes. And this is basically where the movie honors the check that it has written to the audiences, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is our big super chase scene. I liked it. It's a lot of fun. Doesn't have to do with tradecraft, so we can move on from there. Unless you had specifics.
Just overall, getting out of the hotel was pretty impossible. So, like you said, there isn't too much tradecraft, but I did like how he got out, like escaping in the ambulance, which we see a lot in spy films. Like how he started the fire in the supply closet, which caused a whole fire, and then the ambulances and fire trucks and police cars started showing up, and like the NSA team was like, "Oh, this show's going public," and so that's the only thing I can really say is that this escape is pretty much impossible, but at least we got like something where it was like, "Oh, okay, he started a fire and got out in an ambulance," But other than that, yeah, I think I'm good.
Right. I mean, it's, we've already covered it, but it's another place to point out that, like, going in hard, like sending Gary or Jake Busey and Scott Kahn in to do George Smiley job
Right, yeah.
is going to naturally result in a Bruckheimer barbecue.
Right.
I mean, what did they think was going to happen? They're flashing their weapons all over the place. It's just crazy.
Right. But yeah, I don't really see anything else to really talk about for the hotel scene.
I guess it's after this that, like, he goes to try to contact Bonet again. Now it's where he finds out she's dead, and it's very obvious from the scene that some moves have been made to finger him as the murderer.
Right.
That's going to give him the leverage to bring Hackman in correct, since we established, like, Hackman's got a responsibility, and honor to his dead or missing friend or whatever. So this part of it makes sense, and they're back together again, which is what the movie wants. The movie wants, like, Hackman and Smith on screen together, and they are fun.
Absolutely. Well, wasn't it when he went to before he found Rachel dead? He spotted a surveillance van and calls the police to say that they possible drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was clever. Definitely plus blind points. I also liked Will Smith's attire after the hotel. He kind of puts on like a homeless look, like he's just bumming around, which is generally like ignored by the public. So I kind of liked that. But yeah, after that we get Gene Hackman and Will Smith together again. They're on the road and they stop at like a convenience store, and Gene Hackman says, "Just stay put." He gives him a list of rules and stuff like, don't do this, don't do that, and especially don't make any phone calls. So at the convenience store, what does Will Smith do? Of course, he gets on the payphone and calls his wife's friend, and that she's obviously being tapped because the team NSA had been watching everybody in Will Smith's life. And that phone call is what triggers them to spot somewhere in their location, and they're able to locate the safe house. And I actually marked the payphone call as my number 2 worst tradecraft. At this point, Will Smith should have been very aware of the capabilities of being tracked and watched. And he's got a guy that's way above his league telling him not to make any phone calls. And the dialogue tries to fix it by saying, "Oh, I just made a phone call on a payphone." But I still don't. I don't think that's enough to explain. I think Will Smith should have been much the wiser at this moment to like not make any contact. Kind of listen to what Hackman's telling you to do, and so but I think it just needed to be there for the story. So I'm marking it my number 2 worst tradecraft.
It's pretty bad on Hackman's part too. That okay, like what's the expression? Like once burned, twice shy, or something.
Yeah.
So, like this is twice burned.
Right.
Like this is your alarm flag that like you can't trust Will Smith to fucking follow simple goddamn instructions. Very simple goddamn instructions.
Yeah.
I think he should be peeling out.
Right.
I think he should be leaving this guy behind.
Yeah.
But we want Hackman in the movie. He's gonna take Will Smith to his secret fortress of solitude.
Yeah.
Which, again, like I think he would have gone to the Fortress of Solitude. I don't think he would have taken Will Smith there. Like This guy's a problem. This guy's a big problem for you, and it just undermines all of what we are given to understand are Hackman's like decades long, very careful practices of staying out of the spotlight. But we've already litigated that case. This cage that he's got, it's something called a Faraday cage. And I looked it up. Looks totally legit. If you enclose yourself in enough copper wire, you can completely shield high frequency electromagnetic signals. Yeah, so the cage checks out. I didn't get to check. I mean, I saw that like people were making comparisons to this, place that he's got with the 1974, The Conversation. I didn't actually specifically find out if the conversation involved a Faraday cage, but the concept was known at that point. It is legit. We'll give it plus spy points. We'll give it minus spy points for taking Will Smith there. Right. I think. It's one of those situations too, and like, pretty soon the bad guys are gonna show up, and he's gotta boom, blow up his base. It feels great. It's the barbecue. It doesn't fly with me that he puts so much on the line. For what just seems like a very thin possibility of helping out some guy that used to bang the daughter of your friend from 30 years ago.
Right.
Should we give some plus spy points to that calm ass cat?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that they were able to get the cat is boggling to me in that giant warehouse. That cat would have shot out and just hid like somewhere.
I am a cat person. I think I'm on like cat number 10 right now. I have never owned a cat that would have put up with any of this bullshit for 1/4 of a second. Like this cat would be gone, like under a couch, just bailed. But this cat, I guess, I don't know. This cat's seen some shit. This cat's got the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
We got some more exciting stuff too, like escape from Hackman's Fortress of Solitude through the train yard.
Mhm.
Some more barbecue stuff. It's good. It's good. But then they're eventually going to get clear and turn the movie to our, I guess, our third act. This is where uh, Hackman and Smith stop running and start facing forward into what they need to do.
Yeah, and the Hackman takes Smith to like a tech store, like a Radio Shack type place, and gets a bunch of gear.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a witty comment about like the congressman trying to get the bill passed. He's like, yeah, he's going to need that bill to protect him from us, and gives a little wink. Um,
Right.
but we get like a nice, cool montage type of set of shots of, we first get like a guerrilla warfare explanation, which I loved from Hackman, and then they're basically going to turn the tables on the NSA team, and as well as that congressman. They trace the congressman's cell conversation to find what hotel he's staying at, um, and we get like a whole list of sending flowers to the house so the wife thinks that the Voight's cheating on her. You know, we get their cards canceled. They get all kinds of weird stuff happening, planning cameras. It's fun. It's a nice little turn in the tables type of thing. So I kind of wanted to make this my number one best tradecraft because not only do they kind of flip, like just kind of turn it over to them and start counter spying on them, but I Hackman also purposely wanted to get these bugs found and get Voight's attention, and I really liked that. Where it was like, look, buddy, you think you're safe with all your cute tricks and stuff? Look, I can do the exact same thing to you. Like, you are not safe. And then Hackman makes the phone call, like,
It,
I'm here and let's meet, you
it
know?
very much goes to the theme of the film too, which I liked the idea that we established early in the film that Will Smith's character is a little bit dismissive of the dangers of this kind of Patriot Act kind of stuff,
Right.
and then he's caught up in it, and then he
Yeah.
learns what it's actually like to
Right.
have this turned against him. The way that Hackman turns these techniques against the senator and against Voight himself, that's again, it's a warning like, hey, if we can use these tools against our enemies, we can use them against our friends.
Yeah.
We can use them against anyone. There's no like the boxing gloves are off.
Right.
Which I don't think really pays off in the senator, like kind of having his mind turned about it, but that might have been nice.
Mhm.
There could have been like a fine. The final scene is again Larry King interviewing the guy. Maybe it would have been kind of cool. I don't know exactly how you would have written it, but maybe like his bluster would have been kind of dulled.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, he might have said like, yeah, maybe we need to rethink this.
Well, yeah, there's that, but also like letting these things be found by Voight wasn't the only thing he wanted to do because now Voight's in trouble with the government because it's been discovered that the congressman was being spied on. So now Voight's being questioned. Look, these are our toys. Why are they in the congressman's hotel room? Like, you better have a damn good explanation for spying on a United States congressman, right? So I liked that they put a lot of this pressure on, but I think you have a really good point too. That it would have been nice story wise if the congressman kind of conscience might have been shifted a little bit and been like, well, maybe this isn't the best thing. Maybe we shouldn't pass this bill and like look at like, well, what like what freedoms are we giving away for something like this?
Yeah, I would have liked that. Um, Again, not trying to add any runtime to the film. Uh, it is
Yeah.
pretty long. But so that's part of their plan. But then the other part of the plan. Oh, and I wanted to mention too, something I applaud the movie for is, you know, the copy of the tape that Will Smith has
Mhm.
gets fucked up during that final chase scene. Like,
Mhm.
it's no longer of value to them. And that removes a really important card off of their playing table. Whereas, like, once, I mean, a lot of this movie hinges on the fact that Will Smith doesn't know what he has.
Mhm.
Once he finds out what he has, he could easily, like, just fucking, you know, flag someone and hope it's not a, you know, a cop plant.
Right.
And, like, you know, Voight goes down. But they
Right.
don't have the tape anymore.
Uh-huh.
Although it's very important that Voight doesn't know that they don't have the tape anymore.
Right.
So they're still going to have to execute a very dangerous plan B. Hackman, his idea is like, we got to get the guy to confess, right?
Right.
So this last part of the film, it's a little problematic for me, but I want you to take the lead on it. How do they go about this?
So after they've been messing with Voight's life, Hackman finally like makes the play to call and say, "Let's meet. I have the tape. Let's discuss terms or whatever." They meet up, and Hackman shows up dressed as a police officer on the other side of the fence, so they can't really like just nab him, and they can't just shoot him in broad daylight, and he kind of looks like he's supposed to be there because it's a parking lot full of police cars. Um, One of the cool things also about this meeting is, Hackman's bugged, and he turns off the mic so that when they sweep him, they won't notice it. But then Will Smith can remotely turn it on. So that was kind of a cool play that I liked. But
I'm gonna jump in and call that my number one best tradecraft of the film, and
uh,
something I was surprised I had never seen before, because it makes so much sense to expect that you're going to be swept
uh,
and have the transmitter be dead
uh,
or asleep anyways
right,
and not detectable, but then be able to have it activated after you've been swept. That of course requires another person, or I guess you could press a button in your pocket or something, I don't know.
right.
um but yeah, I like that bit quite a lot.
I actually wanted to bring up. I think it was in the Spycraft documentary on Netflix. Apparently, there was a technology from forever ago. You could have these things that weren't battery operated, but would pick up signals by like sending a signal to them. And I think like the Russians gave like a painting to somebody, and it had these little things in them, and so when you swept the room, nothing would come up. But when someone like across the street fired a signal into it, it could actually pick up signals around the painting. Uh, so this whole concept of not being detectable at certain points and then be still being able to be used to pick up conversations, I liked a lot. So I thought that was really cool that they did that, and that's definitely a good one to add to your best list.
Yeah, it's a difference between active and passive transmitters
Uh,
of audio, and that's why I had brought up laser microphones before, because laser microphones are the type that you can get a signal, you can get audio from a passive source.
okay.
And that's why it's often like used through Windows, because
Uh,
what it is like, dude, it's so fucking crazy, but like science is real. Science is real. Like if you and me are having a conversation in a room that has a window, the window is vibrating at a super microscopic level of vibration. And by pointing a laser at the window, you can calculate the differences between the response, like the beam back of the laser or whatever, and actually get audio out of it. You can get that out of it's any thin material. I saw in my research, windows are the best. Windows are fucking awesome for this shit. But you can even do that shit off of a fucking houseplant or a bag of potato chips.
Oh, wow.
It has to.
That's pretty cool.
It just has to be something thin enough that, our voice conversation is actually causing it to vibrate, on a, I don't know, microscopic level, but lasers are sensitive enough to be able to recreate sound from that. Just nuts.
That's pretty incredible.
I know, right? Stay away from the windows.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like I like that, but then it really goes twisty on me for this last part of the movie, even though I love the payoff, which we're getting to. This movie definitely knows where it wants to go and is not shy about just rushing past some, jumping over some little logic hurdles to get where it wants to go. My big problem with the final, I guess, 10 minutes of this movie is I was never sure what Gene Hackman and Will Smith knew about what each other knew or were planning. I mean, Hackman, the plan is I'm going to go down there. I'm going to get a confession. You're going to record it. Also, by the way, if it takes anything longer than 4 minutes, abort and get the fuck out. Right?
Yeah.
Well, Gene Hackman goes in there and gets into his conversation with Jon Voight and starts talking about money, which clearly takes Will Smith by surprise, and also doesn't seem to be particularly helpful. I feel like if they're looking for a confession, I feel like just the fact that they've got Voight on record even being open to the idea of paying $1.8 million for the tape is fairly damning.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be fully damning if they actually had the tape, which they don't. Mm-hmm. And then he starts going on a really long rant about security and democracy and buildings blowing up and you won the war on war, but now we have to make the war on peace. And it goes on for a bit, which I think Hackman should have tried to get him back on track. This is the storyteller using Jon Voight to just voice all their huge concerns about hubris, right?
Well, I think he was stalling, is what I think he was doing.
Well, Voight's stalling. Hackman shouldn't let him stall. Hackman specifically told Smith, we got to get this confession. We got to get this fast. He should have interrupted it at some point. Yeah. In fact, he's even still going. You might not have noticed this, but he's still going on and on his basically a fucking Bond villain rant. When Hackman when the shit goes down, Hackman leaves mid sentence, Jon Voight is still just getting ramped up. He still wants to talk about this shit. Yeah. Right. There will always be power.
Yeah.
and the powerful will always, be fearful of the weak because the weak
Yeah.
do not know what they want, and blah, 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 and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. We talked about, like, did Smith overstay his welcome? He left at 4 minutes. I checked it. It wasn't fast enough. Jake Busey still fucking nails him in the face. And ends up in the van, in the surveillance van. Gene Hackman gets tracked down and also put into the van. They're ending up in the van together. Can't have been on purpose, right?
I don't think so.
I don't
Especially
think so.
Hackman's response, like, oh, well, you're an idiot, you got caught, type of thing. So now they're kind of stuck, and are they going to get out of the situation? And no, I don't think it was planned at all. Hackman might have planned to get caught, to get into the belly of the beast, but I think he was banking on Will Smith following directions. Again, big mistake because he's been burnt so many times about giving directions.
Right, but after 4 minutes, he can't be surprised to see that Will Smith is. Let's see. He should either be he should be expecting Will Smith to be gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe he had some kind of plan here. It gets squirrely in here, and I don't want to. If I laser logic on this last 15 minutes of the film, like we're going to talk about it for another hour.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
Yeah. So they're stuck in the van, moving on, and Will Smith thinks on his feet and is like, okay, well, the tape is at this corner. And the corner is the mob's restaurant, that we talked earlier about how he was representing somebody in the mob. And there's and so the idea, you start figuring out pretty soon, he's creating a standoff between Team NSA and the mob that's trying to mess with him as well. And there's a whole, story about a tape on the mob side and a story about a tape on the NSA side. So he's created a situation where they could talk about a tape and they think they're talking about the same tape and they don't. And we get a nice little guns drawn standoff type of thing, which I thought was clever. But like you said, a lot of this gets kind of squirrely and is kind of a big Hail Mary attempt to get out of the situation. But it's fun for watching a movie. But I did want to mark something as my number 3 best tradecraft. While they're in the van, when they get parked, Will Smith kind of whispers over to Gene Hackman, hey, keep an eye out for the FBI. So while everybody's in the mob thing and it's just Hackman and a couple of the NSA guys, he starts coughing up blood because he's already bleeding from getting shot. And he starts coughing up and he's like an old man, so they got to let him out of the truck to cough. And he's still dressed as a policeman. And the FBI surveillance spots that he's bleeding and coughing up, getting out of this van, and he's dressed it, and they're like, they got a policeman. So that gets the FBI to jump in. So we got a nice 3-way standoff between the FBI, NSA, and the mafia. So it's very Bruckheimer-ish, but I wanted to mark the coughing dressed as a policeman as my number 3 best tradecraft. I thought that was clever of him to get out of the truck knowing the FBI was watching.
I'm glad that you flagged Smith mentioning to Hackman because I missed that. And so that was something that was bothering me was as far as trying to figure out at what point was this the plan between the two of them was very confusing to me.
No, I don't think any of this was the plan.
And I think I think the closer you look at it, the worse it gets.
Right.
But you've definitely helped me out a lot because the idea that Hackman, I mean, sometimes it's like at the end of the day, we planned this all along.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But it's clear that they didn't plan this all along. It's very difficult to tell what each other is knows about what the other is doing. They definitely didn't plan okay, look, and then I'm going to get shot. We're both going to get captured and then I'm going to get shot And then we're going to hope that Jack Black, for some reason, like records.
Oh yeah, what was that even
confession.
about? Why did he even start recording? That was so not explained, even in the interrogation room. Well, why'd you start recording? There was no reason for him to record at all.
I wouldn't say no reason. I think the movie gave us enough of like Jack Black's doubts about what's really going on that he might have done this. What I mean, if I were gonna super quibble, it's that what Hackman says is like, hey, does everyone in this van know that Voight killed Jason Robards and Lisa Bonet?
Right.
And that might have been like the right time for Jack Black to say, oh, maybe I should record this.
Yeah.
But you know, if you look at it really closely, he actually started recording like just before that. So whatever, you know, a little slight edit wobble, but you know, I can buy it. I can get past that. But you definitely can't have Hackman or Smith like counting on you know, someone. But Hackman, I mean, if he's on his, you know, hind legs here, like maybe he's making a good play. He's trying to sow dissent. He's trying to, you know, like if he's got no cards to play,
right,
then maybe he's like, you know, hey guys, you know, this guy's going down. This guy's a murderer. Right. And you're getting taken down with him. Like that's the point that should have inspired Jack Black to start recording, I think.
Right.
It's also like really weird to me that Hackman is like so angry at Will Smith for saying, like, when Will Smith says, I'll give you the tape, and he's like, oh god damn it, that's our fucking leverage. Right. Well, Hackman knows that they don't have the tape.
Right.
So it also looks like a bit of like, I'm playing along with you, which doesn't wash in the water if you look at it too close.
Because he didn't know about the mob restaurant.
Right. But I do like the fact that you mentioned that, okay, so if Smith mentioned to Hackman that like the FBI could be watching, like that helps me a lot. That fixes a bunch of it, because the coughing part is very important. You know, like him playing the old man, bleeding, coughing, cop uniform in an unmarked van across the street from a known like mob hideout. We should definitely pay attention to this, right? You know, safety's off. Will Smith's plan. So we can't imagine that like this was Hackman and Smith like master planning all of this into this final situation with the taking John Voight and his goons to Tom Sizemore's mob hideout, right?
Right.
This is what I want to say about this. It is a really nice payoff, screenplay wise, because it almost like the movie like ends where it began. Mm-hmm. In a way that like I really like when situations that were set up at the very beginning of the movie come back at the very end to create the payoff. It's also like respectful of Will Smith as the lead of the film to be the person that like solves the problem instead of just letting Gene Hackman, you know, lead him in. Like we need like we need an audience payoff of like Will Smith has got to, you know, rise above and figure this shit out. I would call it super overcooked and really complicated, like with the confusion about the tape and some of the conversations with Sizemore and Voight. It's like blah, 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 blah. Iffy, but I totally respect the simple fact of, if Will Smith is in this van, in this situation, take the show somewhere where he knows that there is FBI surveillance. Even if that was all that was in his mind, you know, even if he wasn't super master planning the whole confusion about like, you know, even if that was all improvisation. Taking the show to the place where he knew there was active FBI surveillance, number 2 best. Really good thinking.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It was a fun payoff. I liked the standoff a lot.
And boom, 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 boom. Everyone dies.
Yeah, yeah,
Except the good guys.
yeah. Right. Well, I mean, I think that's about it for the movie.
Uh-huh.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
So you're 14 when you saw this movie?
Yeah.
All right. How'd you like it then? How do you like it now?
I liked it a lot then, and I had a lot of fun watching it again. And just like I had mentioned at the beginning of this episode, just how eerie it was. It's not super rewatchable. Like, I don't think I would like pull it out to watch it again on my own, but I definitely would want to watch it with someone. It's a fun film to watch. So this is kind of probably going to be a little bit higher up. For me, I don't know. I think I want to go with like a 3.5 with this because it's a really fun movie. I really enjoyed watching it. The second time, the zingers, the one line zingers were a little much. They weren't like necessary, and weren't even like that funny. But it still like overall was like kind of edge of your seat, kind of a thriller type, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think I'm going to be more critical on park benches for this one.
All right. Yeah, I'm lower than you on star ratings. Now, I didn't have a previous history with this film. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I definitely am happy that I've seen it once. Don't think I need to see it again. I thought it was funner to watch than think about because of just some of the weird leaps of logic that were necessary to make it the film that it wanted to be.
Yeah.
And chase scenes are not stuff that I really like, respond to as far as like rewatchability. I'm a 2.5 on this guy.
What about your tradecraft?
The Gabriel Byrne as Fake Brill definitely made my list. That was solid. I'll call it my number 3 best. Number 2 best, again, we just talked about it. Like, even though the end part was like maybe too convoluted to suffer good scrutiny, even if the only thought in Will Smith's head was, let's take this show to somewhere where there is FBI surveillance, that's a good play. Number 2 best. Number 1 best, easily. Surprised I've never seen it. I'm going to be bugged, but I'm not going to activate. You're not going to activate my bug until you see me give a visual signal of gum in the mouth.
Yeah, that was definitely good.
Yeah, solid.
My number 3 best tradecraft was Gene Hackman dressed as a police officer, coughing to get out of the van, knowing the FBI was watching, which would get them involved. My number 2 best tradecraft, I really liked Gabriel Byrne faking being Brill. Not only that, but just sweeping for bugs and pulling one out to show him so that he could gain Will Smith's confidence. I really, really liked it. I thought that was very clever.
And not the others, right?
And leaving the others in.
Yeah. It's a good one.
My number 1 best tradecraft was the counter spying of Gene Hackman against Voight, and just the whole montage of just turning the tables and doing everything they had been doing to Will Smith, and then purposely letting the bugs and cameras all being found. I liked that a lot because it was kind of like, this is not a game anymore for you. You're not in control. We're on equal ground. We need to meet, and you need to take this seriously. So I like that a lot. What about your worst tradecraft?
As a stand-in, there's so many technological questions I have about this movie, but I can't be sure. One thing I'm damn sure about is that the bullet time camera element that they use in the lingerie shop is,
Mm-hmm.
I, I, I mean, we talked a lot about technology that exists now that maybe didn't exist in '98. That shit doesn't even exist now.
Right.
So that had to make my list. My number 2 and number 1 worst are pretty much just a pairing of Voight's general approach and Hackman's general approach to the movie. They're both like, what they are is very thin connective tissues to get the movie where it wants to go, and that's fine, and it makes for probably a better movie, but they don't suffer scrutiny. So yeah, number 2, I don't know, you could flip them. I think Voight's bad at his job and Hackman's bad at his job.
That's pretty good, yeah. My number 3 worst tradecraft was when the two goons were pretending to be detectives when they first, make a play at Will Smith, was bringing up Rachel Banks. They were already playing the nice guy detectives, just making investigations about the death, and pulling Rachel Banks out that early was really tipping their hand. Like, we're watching you and we know about you, and it basically put Will Smith on the defensive.
Yeah, good call.
My number 2 worst tradecraft was the phone call at the gas station mini mart place. Like, at this point, he should have been much wiser and just followed the rules and just not made any phone calls. So that was I wanted to make that my number 1 because of what a big fumble that was. But it wouldn't have mattered if, from what I made my number 1 worst tradecraft, was Voight ruining Smith's life and being so heavy-handed on, pressuring him and trying to, just flex all over him. And it was just like, if he didn't do that, he probably could have just watched him and gotten a ton of information. So that's why I didn't make this my number 1 worst tradecraft, because if Voight had just done a better job, the phone call wouldn't have even mattered. So, yeah, definitely they should have had a much lighter touch in watching Will Smith. So that's my number 1 worst tradecraft.
It's a movie that was ahead of its time. And
Right.
so it gets some things wrong about what you should actually be worried about. It's like watching the earliest movie about hacking, where the audience doesn't really know what hacking is. So you have to make it very blatant and in your face.
Right.
And this movie, or you have a movie about AI, and people don't really understand how AI actually works. So if you want to make a entertainment piece about it, you have to make it really blatant and in your face. This is that version, in my mind, of surveillance. Like, the real things we need to worry about are not what we see in this film, but it's crazy ahead of its time.
So for park benches, where do we want to go?
Park benches. So, okay, no matter how much we did or did not like the movie, our park bench rating from 0 to 5 is going to reflect the accuracy
Right.
of the
Either
movie.
historical or tradecraft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to go pretty low on this because, like you pointed out in your worst tradecrafts, that Voight was bad at his job and Hackman was bad at his job. But I don't want to quite drop down to a 1, but I don't know. I'm thinking a 2 or a 2.5 is kind of where I'm at.
I'm in the zone with you. Between 2 and 2.5, I'm going to bump it up between those 2 at 2.5 because we see a lot.
Yeah, we do see a lot.
Yeah. Even though it's a little overcooked,
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of the things we see came to pass.
Yeah.
These transmitters did get smaller. This GPS technology did get better. This satellite imagery stuff did get better. It came to pass.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's give it that 2.5.
That sounds good to me.
All right.
5 pork benches, enemy of the state. And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like_us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. You can find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what will really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey, Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.